Good morning.
Morning. Oh, that piece is still gonna fall out.
I'll have to modify. Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, that's a really good idea. We just need to put a little...
Yeah, I need to extend the swing door.
What we're doing is we typically draw out two bars, and we've added a third because we want to increase our capacity on these builders.
Depending on how well this works, I might just add a bit of a shim in here, like cut it a bit deeper there, and then add a bit of a shim just to lift it up a little bit.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. All right, so Carrie's shifting the graft frame from A to B, as we do every day now. This builder has a few more bees in it, eh? It's nice when they're on the foundation like that. And they're on the patty, so there's demand for protein. And the syrup is somewhat alright. Still got syrup in there, so that's good.
Well, it was topped up yesterday.
Ah, so that's why. Like they're just devouring a patty.
Oh, wait.
That's
I'm
good.
2 steps ahead of myself.
What pollen would be flowing in now? I think the maples are done.
Saskatoons are starting to bloom up here.
This will be some of that
Just
really
starting.
good stuff. It's my favorite part. So they're just capping the cells. We're just do a quick shift. They're drawing these out nice. Oh boy.
It's a little bit dark.
I wonder if that's because of the dark comb I got in here. Propolis staining. That is really nice. Well, those are satisfactory. Right full of jelly. All right.
See 3 blanks on this one?
3, yeah. 1, 2, 3. So that goes on slot B, and then we're going to put the graft frames in the slot A just to polish up this morning, and then Carrie's going to do her 1 o'clock graft. So we've hit a nice routine. And 4 days from now, or 3 days I guess, as we shift out, we got to claim back that incubator from the kids. Because we have queen cells we need to hatch out. Just got a message from a fellow I met out in Bangor, Maine, Jason Peters. He had mentioned hey Jackass, don't forget it's Sandy's birthday today. Duly noted. Think I'll slip back home just after we're done equalizing and working through this yard just to wish my wife a happy birthday. But in my defense, I mean, who has a birthday at the end of May? I mean, we have queens being reared, we have hives to work through, we're just about to split our hives, we're full out seeding and moving cattle out to pasture. I mean, it's a hell of a time to have a birthday. But I will let you know that Sandy uses every opportunity as leverage, and especially last year. Of course, last year I forgot her birthday too, and she remembered that. And when I was invited out to Bangor, Maine to speak at their yearly meeting, she used that event and she leveraged another day of holiday, just the two of us, and it was quite nice actually. We kind of got lost along the shoreline. We headed down to Bar Harbor, and then we just started following the coast all the way along, and we made a rule is just to keep turning left. It kept us right on the shore all the way along. We walked out to the water's edge. Quite just absolutely spectacular. Actually, it'll be some of my best memories is that day. We went into this little town called Bar Harbor, and just a beautiful little town. Everything was shut down at that time because it was off season, so the place was pretty quiet, and we had a hard time actually finding a cafe. But we went down to the water, to the harbor, I guess, and there's this little island out just beside the place, we're going on a walking trail, and we come up to the end of this walking trail, and it says you should be able to get to this island, but it's, we can't because of the water. So we guess that's fine. So we left, we went and we kind of explored along the coastline for a little while, made our way back to Bar Harbor, found a little cafe, made back down to that little trail, and all of a sudden this path has appeared, which allowed us to get to that island. It was really neat. As the tide had went out, it exposed this little bar, which allowed us to make it to this island. And I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, for a little prairie boy like me, I don't see things like that at all. So we made it across this little bar onto that island and walked around there a little bit to come back, and then had supper at some fish and chip place. Just delicious, absolutely delicious. But at any rate, the point is, my wife, I think, expects me to forget her birthday just so she can use that as leverage to be able to pull certain events and certain things out of me later on throughout the year, which I don't mind whatsoever. Anyway, back to beekeeping. We kind of just parked right in the middle of this yard, which is not really a good idea because it just doesn't stir them up, but it gets everybody lost as they're trying to find their way back into their hives. And we're just seeing loads of pollen coming in. I mean, it's first thing in the morning, and these girls have been working well before we got up and going. It's just so exciting to see. These hives are picking up a lot of ground. We're going through another hatch, obviously, and they are exploding in growth, and I'm not going to be able to keep up with the growth. So what we're doing is we're tipping back these colonies. We're not focusing on the big ones at all because they're satisfied with 2 boxes. They're good to go. But we're going through and we're tipping back all these singles now, and we're identifying the strong ones and we're identifying the small ones. And so the strong ones we're looking at some of these big ones as being like a box of bees. And we can't handle that kind of workload right now. So we're just putting a second on top of those ones right now in anticipation in about a week and a half or so we're going to actually pull a couple brood frames split from those guys. So a box on those big boxes of bees will just buy us a little bit of time. Then we're going through the ones that are bigger that we can maybe pull 1 frame of brood from, and we're taking those brood frames and we're dropping them into the smaller hives. And we're inspecting the smaller ones. We're going through them very critically just to see why they're small. And if they meet the grade, we drop a couple brood frames in there just to help catch them back up to the rest of the apiary. But if we find something is giving us trouble, we're shaking them out. We're not dealing with them. We'll just fill that empty spot in with a nuke, as long as I don't sell all these nukes. But we'll fill all those empty spots in and carry on. So I'll just show you kind of what I'm seeing here. So these hives here, we're targeting the singles now. These feed pails are empty. I'm just making the decision now whether to go around and maybe give them another half gallon just to help them bridge to this nectar flow. But I think I'm going to send the crew around and just pick these pails because we are on the anticipation of a heavy nectar flow. All these flowers that are just sitting here still will start to bloom. Yesterday I was in the yard. I couldn't see where the flowers were, but we are actually shaking nectar, so we are extremely close to a flow. So we just have to make sure, I don't want to plug them out with syrup before this heavy flow comes in. We're not going to collect this nectar flow for surplus. We're going to collect it to build bees. So I'm looking at colonies and I'm just tipping them back. And I'm finding boxes of bees. So these guys, we don't have enough time in the day to be able to, target these guys and pull them down a bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a second on top of these hives. Some of these units are probably the ones that should have got seconds on through that cold weather, but I just graded them down just a little bit because they weren't quite strong enough to take that extra space through that cold weather. But now they need it. So anything that's showing like a box of bees, I'm throwing space on top. And it's also going to help with this nectar flow it's about to hit us. It's going to be extremely heavy, I'm anticipating. And just that extra space will just provide a place to put all that nectar as it flows in. And should help just carry on the development without plugging out the nest. And we will simply take a 2 brood frame split from these colonies as we make our round for our full split. Going into my second colony here, see what we got. Another box of bees. So they're not making any queen cells in the bottom yet, which means I'm not off on my timing. But they are drawing mature drone brood at the bottom, which is extremely encouraging. So these guys can take a second box. Just going to go into another colony here. So this one is about 5 or 6 frames of bees, maybe a little bit off center, but I'm not going to do anything with those guys. Those guys are pretty well set up. We just leave those guys alone. Just take a peek. This next one. So I'm looking at not quite a box of bees here, maybe 8 to 9 frames of bees. Those guys we will target and pull 1 brood frame from them right now, maybe a shake of bees, and we'll give to a smaller colony. Here's one of the nukes that we merged over top of a strong unit a while back, and I pulled that off, threw into an empty spot here. We'll just take a peek at them. And they are 8 to 9 frames of bees. They look really good. So we can just leave those guys alone. So they're probably chugging along just fine. They feel quite heavy too, so they don't need any feed. So a colony like this is looking at about 3 to 4 frames of bees. So what we'll do with them is we'll just pull them apart and take a good look down to see if they're capable. And if they are, we'll drop them a brood frame just to help them catch up. So the way I organize the yard is I work ahead, and the ones that require more space, like these ones here, I'm just taking off the pail, take off the lid. I just leave the hive open like this. So that tells Carrie, who's behind me, to drop a box on, drop a second on. The ones with the pails that stay on mean we leave those guys alone. And the units that we will skim from, which one was that? I'll have to reassess because I'm talking too much here. So I think the units that we need to skim from, I just pull a pail out in front like this. So that means we take a brood frame from that colony, and these units that need a boost, the lid is flipped upside down, which means it needs an inspection and a boost. So that's how I set things up. So I work ahead, I leave that pattern behind me, and we just work accordingly. So we don't actually have to ask every time as we go approach a colony, what's going on here? We have little cues like that. Here's one of the mergers that we put together. So as we worked through this yard last time, one of our strong hives were identified and a smaller hive was identified. And the smaller hive was just below that population threshold, but that queen looked like she had potential in her yet. So what we did is we dropped that small unit on top of that big unit just to pull some of the strength from the bottom to bring it up top, just to boost that small queen. And Carrie's going through the yard just to spot check to see how the queen is doing. Is there any eggs in there?
She's right there.
Can't see
Bottom
through my
right hand.
screen. Have to point her out. Oh, there she is, hiding in the shadows. So there's our queen that we salvaged, and she had shown a little bit of potential. So we gave her, and that's full of eggs.
Oh yeah, eggs and young larvae.
So she's been able to stretch her nest right out. I just want to see a brood frame to see how far advanced they are, because I'm thinking, I forget when we did these guys. It might be time for us to pull them off. Once we get through this equalization round, we're going to make it through and pull off these mergers. Well, that looks all right.
She's still fighting for property, but she's still getting pretty solid there.
That is all right. So that's why we've, boosted this hive, because they've got some, they're going to make me money yet, so we got to make sure that they have enough bees to be able to do that for me. So we'll come through as soon as we get caught up here, and we'll have to do it quite shortly because these hives, we don't want that brood. Guess we're not really on a timeline. They're working pretty well together, but now that they've established this unit up top, I want them off on their own just to be able to carry on their function as a single unit. We'll take these and we'll pretty much go yard to yard. We'll take off the merger splits here, and we'll take them to the next yard to fill in a dead spot, just to help us fill in these dead spots. Just one way of fighting this continual attrition within an apiary. We just
And this one's packed with eggs.
packed full of eggs. So we have a little bit of time. This is one of those tricks to help fight attrition, is you identify anything that has potential. You know, through a tough spring like we had, you're dragged down. Some of these hives don't look as good as they should. Then you have good ones, and this just helps you balance out the apiary. And it just helps you keep these spots full with working hives. It's a neat little trick. Just one more tool in our toolbox. A lot of beekeeping is the kind of the philosophy that you follow on keeping the bees. It just depends on how you see beekeeping, how you see your hives, and how you see it interacting with the natural world. So that's what makes beekeeping really local, almost down to the very point of the individual themselves, and just how we read the nests and manage them. And I'll just show you one of the ways I do. Like, I'm tipping back these colonies right now. Kind of in the shadow here, but I'm seeing a box of bees. This is probably one of those colonies that needed to be doubled up through the cold, which I maybe assessed backwards just a little bit, just to protect them, not giving them too much space. But what they're doing, so you can see that they're pulling down drone brood at the bottom of the frames. Like, this box is packed full of bees, and they are putting a lot of energy into drone rearing. So they're preparing to swarm. And you'll notice little cups just starting to form. I'll have to find them. But just little cups, no eggs in them yet. So that queen is basically working within the center of the nest and starting to pull that nest downwards with drone production. And that's a really good sign. They're not getting in any hurry to swarm off before they're prepared. They're looking after their nest at home before they choose to, you know, replicate themselves, to swarm off, to take that risk of reproduction. And that's kind of what I'm focusing on. That's what I'm promoting within my apiary, is to promote that focus of internal development, to make sure that they look after their home before they look after, you know, replicating themselves. I want them to think that it's better worth their time and investment to maintain the house they got going here than to call broke and go find another place out to start a home. So as long as they feel like this home needs to be maintained, this is where they want to stay, this is where they have to invest their time and resources, then they're more likely going to act in a manner which promotes sustainability and sustainable growth, and will keep them at home more often than swarming off. So just a little bit of a strategy there that I employ. I provide them with space, I provide them with food, I control disease control. You know, I'm not throwing them in that constant imbalance of too much space, not enough space. I target that steady incline of growth. And these guys will be getting space right away. Because by putting the drones on the bottom there, they're telling me in effect, yep, we're feeling really good. We've got everything figured back home here. We're gonna start preparing to reproduce and cast off the swarm. Take that risk to cast off that swarm. But they're not doing it until they get all their house in order. So that's really exciting when I can see actually, you know, my whole philosophy of beekeeping kind of come around full circle like that, where I'm kind of managing all those aspects to promote the sustainable development and that continued succession of the colony as it's moving throughout all the stages. I've made lots of cattle fences in my day, but this is the first time I've made a bear fence. So I have 5 little workers. Are you okay?
Yeah.
5 little workers, and we are putting up a bear fence around my apiary. We've got 1 fence up so far. This is our second one we're putting up. We had a bear come last night and hit 3 different yards and took 14 hives on me and just destroyed them. So I brought out my little helpers to help me put this fence up. So we're going to put up 2 fences every evening and hopefully mitigate the losses from this damn bear. My wire puller. These 2 are going to be on the staff this year, so they don't need any special attention. And April, maybe, this is the duck farmer, giving me a fence. Keeping that wire from unspooling. Uh-oh, it's coming to the end.
No,
We might not have enough wire here.
we're not gonna make it.
Not gonna make it. We run out. Shucks. We're just about...
2 more rounds and we're out.
Here, we'll catch that. Okay, I'll go a little bit further. We'll have to bring some more wire. Okay, just hang on there. Back it up a bit. Back it up. We'll have to go to that post. Can you bring some staples out to the guys?
What?
Staples? Go grab some staples.
Where?
They have it in the bucket.
Where?
Over there. You can hand staples out to them, okay? So at any rate, this is something we just got to do, I guess, until either that bear moves out, or we move it out, or someone takes it out.